Hey everyone.
Hello there. Okay. I'm Hal.
And I'm Melanie.
Okay. I'm missing
And-
my cues, I am.
And we're the authors of Raising Real Men.
Yes. And some other books besides. And what we wanted to talk about a little bit today was just how ordinary people can become authors, because this is what happened to us.
Well, you know how I remember years ago, you'd written a Christmas letter, and I was typing up for you and getting it formatted to send out, and I was laughing out loud. It was hilarious, and I thought, this guy's real talent is writing. But you're an engineer.
Yeah, and they always asked me to write the newsletter or to edit the minutes or to write the technical reports, but I just wasn't getting the message that, maybe I should look at writing, at least in a more attention-spanned way,
Well, the way we made our living is you were an engineer, I was a housewife.
Yeah.
Writing didn't seem a real possibility.
No.
But, writing was clearly your gift. And I remember, making comments and forums and stuff and people saying, you ought to write a book. Thinking, I can't write a book. I wouldn't know how to begin to write a book.
Mm-hmm.
But people said that a lot. And, it was interesting because a few years later, we were serving in the homeschool organization and had become speakers because people would ask people from our state homeschool organization to come speak.
Right.
And because we had a lot of boys, people asked us to speak about raising boys.
Right. And after we kind of got a reputation doing that, people started asking, well, do you have a book? And we said, no, we don't have a book. We don't have time to have a book.
We've
got
a family.
We got a family to raise, and I've got a job to pursue. And, we had a lot of reasons and excuses and all. But,
and it got to the point, though, that people were asking us to speak in wider and wider venues. And finally, somebody asked us to speak at a conference, like, I think in Arizona.
it was.
And we had never spoken outside the Carolinas at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember you said, honey, I think it's time to write our book.
And you thought I was crazy.
I thought you were crazy. I mean, we couldn't get everything done as it was.
Right.
We didn't know anything about writing books. We'd never written anything longer than a magazine article.
Mm-hmm.
How could two people like us write a book? But, that night I knew the Lord wouldn't let me sleep, and I knew you were right.
Mm-hmm.
And so the next day, I remember picking a topic out of the air and just writing what I thought about that topic and then sending it up to you. You had a home office then.
Right.
And you wrote what you thought and then through what I'd written and sent it back. I remember thinking, this is pretty good.
Well, it was the first time we'd actually, set our minds to doing it and to collaborating on it, which was an interesting experiment. But
there were glitches after that because we had to figure out what exactly we wanted to write and what we wanted to say.
Right, how were we going to organize it, and what was the whole process? But it was something that we worked our way through.
Yeah, and we learned a lot doing it. And what was interesting though is the reception when we got to Arizona, because I guess I just didn't have very high hopes from what we'd written. It was exciting to get it all down, what we thought on paper finally, but I thought, is this really going to do anything?
Well, I just thought it would be something we could put out on the table when we spoke at a support group meeting or, went to a conference or something. We'd have something we could sell, but we didn't really expect anything much to come of it.
And then we got there. And I remember I did this session about being a mom of boys and got to the end. And so I put up a slide of our book and I said, okay, Hal and I have written a new book and we just brought a couple of boxes, and people got up and started leaving. And I'm like totally freaking out, because I'm thinking they don't want to hear me say this. I was so embarrassed.
Right.
What I didn't know, I got back to the booth and it was mobbed.
Yeah, you didn't know what I was going through in that 15 minutes or so.
Yeah, and I remember saying, Hal, there's nothing on the table. You need to get more books out. And I walked around and lifted up the tablecloth, and it was empty under there.
That's because we had sold over 100 books in 15 minutes.
It blew me away.
Unbelievable.
I remember just getting back to the room and just staring at each other, saying, what is God doing here?
Yeah, well, we were just absolutely flummoxed, because we thought this doesn't happen. And to be fair, we have never sold at that rate ever since. But that was like God saying, okay, are you paying attention? I have something here I want you to pay attention to. And
Well, I remember when we got back home,
yeah,
looking at each other and saying, we better find out if this book is actually any good.
yeah.
And we started sending it out to reviewers, and we started getting endorsements back from people we really respected.
Oh,
People like Ted Tripp and John Rosemont. I mean, it blew me away. I'm like
Yeah.
going, I about had the vapors when the first one came back. But it was
Yeah.
interesting because we went from being an engineer and a housewife
Mhm.
to being full-time authors and speakers in 6 months.
And that
You
was,
know?
that wasn't our goal or plan, but that was obviously what God had planned
Yeah.
and what God was putting together in our lives. And it's been a remarkable journey. Now that's been about 5 years, 6 years,
6
Almost 7.
years, almost 7 years,
almost 7.
and 6 years and 3 books ago.
Right.
Yeah. But people have asked us again and again to please tell them how we did it. How did we go about figuring out what to write, how to write it? How do you choose a topic? How do you actually get the book down on paper? And then how do you make it happen? How do you get it into people's hands? How do you get a platform?
Mm-hmm.
And so we have finally put it together. And
Right.
so Tuesday night, we're going to do an online seminar on it. We're calling it First Time Author Online
Right.
Seminar. And it's how do you get that book out of your dreams
Right.
and onto paper, and how you get it into readers' hands and build yourself a platform.
Yeah. And I think it's going to be time very well spent. If anybody is thinking about becoming an author or maybe trying to write, or maybe you've already got a manuscript. People come to us sometimes and say, hey, I've got this manuscript that I've written. What do I do next?
Yeah.
We're gonna try to cover all of that. We're gonna pack it in just as tight as we can, starting at 8:00 Eastern on Tuesday, November the 1st.
Yes.
And the idea is we want to take you from, I have a story I want to tell, but I'm not sure how to start,
Right.
all the way through how to get it organized, get it on paper, get it, go through the whole process of getting it ready for publication, so that then, if you want to seek out a publisher, you're ready to
We're
go
going
with
to talk about how to find a publisher versus, what if you decide to publish it yourself?
that. And that's an interesting discussion.
And how to market it, because it doesn't matter what you've written if nobody ever reads it.
There's ways that you can take your manuscript and print 5 copies and give it to your mother-in-law and
Who may not read it either.
and be happy, and nobody else ever sees it. But if you really want to get a message out to a larger group of people, there's ways to do that, and there's new ways to do that didn't exist a generation ago.
And you don't need a lot of money to do it. That's the thing.
No, you don't.
We started this out, with nothing and build it from scratch.
We bootstrapped it.
But we're going to do this new workshop, and I'm really excited about it. And you can find it on our website,
right,
at raisingrealmen.com/author101.
Yep.
And we think it's so cool that we've even promised that we'll give you your money back if you ask us within a couple of days of watching it. If you don't think it's a benefit to you, we'll give you your money back, because I think it's going to be really cool. People have been asking us to do this a long time. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And we're going to be, all those things you wish you knew. How do I brainstorm most effectively what I want to put in the book? How do I come up with the table of contents? How do I get it edited? What does editing mean? There's different levels of editing.
Yeah.
There's editing for content, where where that kind of editor will help you and say, you said this again later. You should have.
Right.
They're going to help you move your content around to make sense. And then there's just light proofreading. Correcting your spelling. If you need content editing, a proofreader's not going to help you.
Right. Right.
So there's a lot of things you need to know when you're getting ready to write a book and get that book out to the audience. If we want to share that with you, I think it's going to be a blast.
And a lot of people, they're going to come and they'll listen and they'll think, oh man, well, what about this? They'll have questions that come up they never knew that they needed to ask. So we're going to leave time for that. We're going to have time at the end for Q&A.
A lot of time for Q&A.
Right. Pretty much as long as you want to keep talking.
Yeah.
And we'll try to make that just as informative as we can make it, and really encourage you as you're looking at this project and look at the message that God's given you to realize, hey, there's a way to make this really happen. You can make it a reality, maybe in a way that you never realized was even possible.
Well, I honestly, Hal, I remember that day sitting there at the computer, putting together that Christmas letter and wishing that you could be a writer. And thinking, that's just impossible. We're too invested in what we're doing. There's no way it's going to ever happen. And, that now I look at our lives and I think, I remember we were driving through, I think it was Arizona, through the petrified forest.
Yep.
And you just looked over at me and grinned and you said,
I'm at work today.
yes.
This is work. I am at the office today, driving through the painted desert. And that was, it was incredible.
I often think, thank you, God, for letting us do what we're doing.
I really feel like at this time in our lives, we are truly where God wants us to be. And it's using that, what he showed us and what we learned through that process of becoming writers, becoming authors, and getting a message out in a way that, if I talk to friends, I can maybe touch a half a dozen lives.
Yeah.
If I talk to a church full of people, maybe 100, 200.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Even as speakers, we can speak to the people that are in front of us. But as authors, people in South Africa have read our book, people in Singapore, and, generations that haven't even been born can read it.
Yeah. And that's, that's the remarkable thing about putting it in print. You've captured those thoughts. You've captured the message God's given you. And you can reach so much further than you can do personally. Even in this great technological age where you've got all this communication capability, but you know what? Everybody's limited by their bandwidth. Everybody's limited by their time to watch it. And to have a book actually printed that you can hand to somebody, that somebody can pick up and read after you've gone to your heavenly reward.
Yeah, that's
that
really cool.
It can influence people long beyond your own lifetime. What a great opportunity that is.
So, Tuesday night, 8 o'clock, will be live. It'll be slides, video, chat, interaction with you.
Right.
Talking about how you can get your dreams out of your head and onto paper so that you've got a book that you can say, this is the book I wrote.
That's right. So if you want to get some more information, go to raisingrealmen.com/author. Is it author or authors?
Yeah, I think it's Author 101.
Author 101. AUTHOR 101.
Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you for listening to our story. We love you guys on Facebook. You know that.
Great.
We appreciate you, and we'll see you later.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.